Namaste, Hamesha Kushro Bitia. I am JVN Dr. Minakshi, Assistant Professor in Department of Shalakya Tantra, Faculty of Ayurvedic Science, Jyoti Vidyapith Women's University. Today in this session we will discuss the chlamydial conjunctivitis. It is a type of infectious conjunctivitis. So the chlamydia lie midway between bacteria and viruses, sharing some of the properties of both. Like viruses, they are obligate, intracellular, and filtrable, whereas like bacteria, they contain both DNA and RNA, divide by binary fission, and are sensitive to antibiotics. The chlamydia combined from the PLT group, uh, commonly form the PLT group, the Psittacosis, lymphogranuloma, Venerium, and Trachomatis group. So his uh, chlamydial conjunctivitis classification, they can be trachoma, adult inclusion conjunctivitis, and neonatal chlamydial conjunctivitis. So here we will study the adult inclusion conjunctivitis. It is the acute follicular conjunctivitis. Trachoma we will discuss in a separate session. So it is one of the Egyptian ophthalmia. It is a chronic keratoconjunctivitis. We'll discuss in the separate chapter. Here we'll discuss the adult inclusion conjunctivitis. So it is a type of acute follicular conjunctivitis associated with mucopollulant discharge. It usually affects the sexually active young adults. Then the etiology of the adult inclusion conjunctivitis. The inclusion conjunctivitis is caused by the serotypes D to K of the Chlamydia trachomatis. The primary source of infection is urethritis in males and cervicitis in females. The transmission of infection may occur to eyes either through contaminated fingers or more commonly through contaminated water of swimming pool. Hence the name swimming pool conjunctivitis is also given to this disease. Then the incubation period of the disease is 4 to 12 days, and the symptoms are similar to acute mucopollulant conjunctivitis, and these are ocular discomfort, foreign body sensation, mild photophobia, and mucopollulant discharge from the eyes. Then the signs of inclusion conjunctivitis are conjunctival hyperemia, more marked in the fornices, acute follicular hypertrophy predominantly of lower palpebral conjunctiva, superficial keratitis in upper half of cornea, sometimes superior micropenis may also occur. Then preauricular lymphadenopathy is the usual finding. Then we have the clinical course. The disease runs a benign course and often evolves into the chronic follicular conjunctivitis, and differential diagnosis may be made from other causes of acute follicular conjunctivitis. Then we have the treatment plan. The treatment is and another topical therapy. It consists of the tetracycline 1% eye ointment 4 times a day for 6 weeks. Then we should go for the systemic therapy. It is very important since the condition is often associated with an asymptomatic viral infection. Commonly employed antibiotics are tetracycline 250 milligram 4 times a day for 3 to 4 weeks, and erythromycin 250 milligram 4 times a day for 3 to 4 weeks only when the tetracycline is contraindicated, for example in pregnant and lactating females. Then we can give doxycycline 100 milligram twice a day for 1 to 2 weeks, or 200 milligram weekly for 3 weeks is an effective alternative to tetracycline. We can also give the azithromycin 1 gram as a single dose in also is also effective. And then if we discuss about the prophylaxis, the improvement in personal hygiene and regular chlorination of the swimming pool water will definitely decrease the spread of disease. The patient's sexual partner should be examined and treated. So this was all about the adult inclusion conjunctivitis. The other disease which comes under chlamydial conjunctivitis is the trachoma. I have told you that we will discuss in the separate chapter. Here I can give you a brief review. It is the Egyptian ophthalmia and it is a chronic keratoconjunctivitis primarily affecting the superficial epithelium of conjunctiva and cornea simultaneously. It is characterized by a mixed follicular and papillary response of conjunctival tissue. It is still one of the leading causes of preventable blindness in the world. And the word trachoma comes from the Greek word for rough, which describes the surface appearance of the conjunctiva in chronic trachoma. And the uh, there's one other disease called neonatal choroidal conjunctivitis. It is again a separate topic which we will not discuss here. So here our session completes of choroidal conjunctivitis. In next session, we will discuss about the viral conjunctivitis, which is another type of the infective conjunctivitis. So, thank you so much. This session is powered by Digital Version 2.0 Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University. I hope you are satisfied with my digital session. If you have any query, please mention in the comment box. I will resolve it. Thank you so much. And the lower lid just touches the limbus. Then canthi. What is canthi? The two lids meet each other at medial and lateral angles, which are known as the outer canthi and the inner canthi. The medial canthus is about 2 millimeters higher than the lateral canthus. Then what is the palpable aperture? It is the elliptical space between the upper and the lower lid. When the eyes are open, it measures about 10 to 11 millimeter vertically in the center and about 28 to 30 millimeter horizontally. Then we come to the lid margin. It is about 2 millimeter broad and is divided into two parts by the punctum. The medial lacrimal portion is rounded and it is devoid of lashes or glands. The lateral is called the ciliary portion and it consists of a rounded anterior border, a sharp posterior border, and an intermarginal strip between the two borders. Two borders means the anterior border and posterior border. In between the two borders, there is an intermarginal strip. And there is a gray line which marks the junction of skin and conjunctiva. It divides the intermarginal strip into an anterior strip bearing 2 to 3 rows of lashes and a posterior strip on which openings of meibomian glands are arranged in a row. The splitting of the eyelids when required in operations is done at the level of the gray line. So you understood what is the gray line? Then next is the structure. Each eyelid is consists of various layers. So we study these layers from anterior to posterior. The first structure in the eyelid is the skin. The skin of eyelid is elastic, having a fine texture, and is the thinnest in the body. Then next layer below the skin in the eyelid is the subcutaneous areolar tissue. This subcutaneous areolar tissue is very loose and contains no fat. It is thus readily distended by edema or blood. Then the next structure we'll discuss. Here's an image in which they have shown the structure of upper eyelid. In the lower side, there is the opening of meibomian gland, and at the root of hair follicle there is disease gland, and there is sweat gland, marginal arcade, meibomian gland in the tarsal plate, gland of Wolfram, peripheral arcade, Mueller's muscle, levator, gland of Cross, fat, septum orbicularis, orbicularis oculi muscle. Then the third layer in the eyelid is the layer of striated muscle. It consists of orbicularis muscle which forms an oval sheet across the eyelids. It comprises three portions: the orbital portion, the palpebral portion, and the lacrimal portion. It closes the eyelids and is supplied by a zygomatic branch of the facial nerve. Therefore, in the paralysis of facial nerve, there occurs lagophthalmos, which may be complicated by exposure keratitis. What is lagophthalmos? It is the inability to close the eyelids, and thus in the eyelid there is a striated muscle present called the orbicularis oculi, which is supplied by the facial nerve branch. So in case of facial paralysis, then patient suffer from the lagophthalmos. Patient is not able to close the eyelids, and when he is not able to close the eyelids due to exposure, there will be the inflammation of cornea. In addition, the upper lid also contains the levator palpebrae superioris muscle. It is called the LPS muscle. It arises from the apex of the orbit and is inserted by three parts on the skin of lid, anterior surface of the tarsal plate, and conjunctiva of superior fornix. It raises the upper lid and it is supplied by a branch of oculomotor nerve. Then the fourth layer in the eyelid is the submuscular areolar tissue. It is a layer of loose connective tissue, and the nerves and vessels, these lie in this layer. Therefore, to anesthetize lids, injection is given in this plane of submuscular areolar tissue, which is supplied by the nerves. It is anesthetized by the injection. Then the next layer in the eyelid is fibrous layer. It is the framework of the lids and consists of two parts: the central tarsal part and the peripheral septum orbital. I will show that in the image. The tarsal plates, these are two plates of dense connective tissue, one for each lid. Means in each lid we have a plate of connective tissue which gives shape and firmness to the lids. This is a function of tarsal plate. It is present to shape and provide firmness to the lids. The upper and lower tarsal plate join with each other at medial and lateral canthus. These two plates will join at the two canthi and are attached to the orbital margins through medial and lateral palpebral ligaments. In the substance of the lateral plates lie the meibomian glands in the parallel rows. Therefore, the meibomian glands are called the tarsal glands because they are present in the tarsal plates. Then in this image they have shown the tarsal plate and the septum orbital. Okay, in the inferior tarsus, superior tarsus, and on the both sides they have shown the lateral palpebral ligament and the medial palpebral ligament. So next part is the septum orbital, which is also called the palpebral fascia. It is a thin membrane of connective tissue attached centrally to the tarsal plates and peripherally to the periosteum of the orbital margin. It is perforated by nerves, vessels, and a muscle called the levator palpebrae superioris, which enter the lids from the orbit. Then comes the sixth layer. The sixth layer of non-striated muscle fibers. It consists of the palpebral muscle of Mueller, which lies deep to the septum orbital in both the lids. In the upper lid, it arises from the fibers of LPS muscle, and in the lower lid from prolongation of the inferior rectus muscle, and is inserted on the peripheral margins of the tarsal plate, and it is supplied by the sympathetic fibers. In the last layer of the eyelid is the conjunctiva. The part which lines the lids is called the palpebral conjunctiva, and it consists of three parts as we have discussed in the conjunctiva: marginal, tarsal and orbital. So here completes the layers of the eyelids. So here our session completes with this slide. This session is powered by digital version 2.0 Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University. I hope you are satisfied with my digital session. If you have any query, please mention in the comment box. I will resolve it. Thank you so much.